here with Andre, co-founder and COO of Rently.
That's right, yeah.
Andre, tell everyone listening your journey, your entrepreneurial journey, where you are today.
So I have, like a lot of people in our industry, an unconventional story. So I started my career in cancer research back in 2005, worked at a lab and realized that the lab environment is pretty routine after a while. It sounds a lot more exciting in novels and in movies, but I just found out it wasn't for me. And then I always loved tech. I grew up in the .com era, when pets.com was a thing, and just always loved technology. And anyway, long and short story is in 2015, I was touring homes and apartments. And I think one day I scheduled, this was in Pasadena, I still remember, I scheduled maybe 18 tours in one day, and I think only 3 really happened.
Wow.
And I was like, man, this is terrible. Like, I can't believe I only got 3. And by the way, this is not a made-up story for the show. This is a real story. I tell it to everyone, and I don't know half the people believe me, but
we believe you.
As I was touring an apartment, I get a cold call. Hey, this is, Merrick from Rently, and you applied to a job, and by the way, when you're moving, you apply to like 20 jobs. So I was like, I don't remember who the heck Rently is. And he got me with, what we do is we automate the leasing process and the touring process with our self-show technology. And I sort of had the record stop moment where I was like, oh my God, this company is solving the problem I'm experiencing right now, which is touring. And so and then I later found out that Merrick is the founder with Clark, right? One of the original founders with Clark. And he cold called me, and I walk into the office, and it's like, literally 10 people in a room. Yeah. And there's tables, and that's about it. And a phone, and this is before we had company laptops. You had to bring your own laptop, right? So there's people grinding it away. And there was 2 things that sold me. One was the technology. I really believed in the product. And the second was the people. I was walking around, and everyone was so damn passionate about what they were doing at the time. I was like, I got to try this out. So I like any good, husband and son, I called my mom, and I said, what should I do? And I had this fancy business degree, and, I left cancer research. And she goes, what do you mean you want to start working at a minimum wage job? Because it was minimum wage plus commission for sales, no less. She's like, you got all these degrees to go sell? Like, what are you doing? And I said, well, I need a second opinion. So she said, no, don't do it. And then so I was like, well, this is interestingly enough where I'll get a second opinion. And I asked my wife, I said, what do you think I should do? And she goes, give it 2 weeks. And then the joke is, here I am 10 years later, right? It's just been a journey. So I started off really just making cold calls.
You were in sales.
Put my ego aside, and I said, I'm going to do sales, which I never did before. Yeah. And I just believed in the product. And then just from there, they said, hey, let's try selling, another product. And we came out with our smart home product in 2015, way ahead of its time. And then we started tackling multifamily, and I think 2017 was when we really started selling into multifamily.
So you started single?
We started in single family and then went into multifamily around 2016, 17. Okay. So our first OpTech was 2016 Dallas. Yep. That's where the magic happened, and here we are today. And
now you're COO.
Now I'm the chief operating officer. Our company has 500 people. And it's been a fun journey going from 10 to 500 and even beyond, right? So it's exciting. I would say, one of the most important things I try to do, and I encourage everyone else to do that's a founder, is no matter how small or big you are, stay hungry, stay humble as much as you can. And that's really hard, especially as you grow, to just keep yourself in check, stay customer centric, make sure you're developing products that people care about. And be there for your people.
Speaking of products, tell us about Rently. What is the problem that you solve, and specifically, how do you solve it?
Yeah, great question. I'm a big fan of problem-based roadmaps. So if you were to segment our problem, and what we solve for is exactly the problem I experienced in Pasadena, which is resident friction with touring. that's a big problem, is looking at that listing and turning it into a showing, right? There's a lot of points of friction in that journey. And so Rently's mission is really to make a seamless leasing experience, world-class. And so that's how the company started in 2011. We introduced the self-showing lockbox to the single-family industry at the time. And really, at that time, it was just a one-time code, upload your credit card and a driver's license. We did a match. And so the technology back then was very basic because you didn't have, the technology you have today with smart locks. And so that's how the company started. So we solved that problem of that touring and leasing friction that a lot of residents experience. And, when you look at renting, it's quite an impulsive activity. We have data that shows that like 92% of some of our customers have same day showings. 92% of showings are same day. Means they're scheduling and touring the same day. They just very impulsive, especially in high activity markets. And when you look at the data, you see that, traditional leasing office hours, and I make the joke, which rubs some people the wrong way, that like some leasing office hours are like banker's hours. Like you're like open 10 to 2 on Saturday and you're closed on Sunday and, 9 to 5 during the week. If you look at people and when they're available, it's the opposite of those hours.
So true.
And I remember when we were first going into multifamily, people wouldn't believe me. We had all this data just because we had such this big brand name in single family. And I go, look, guys, this is the data. And the data shows that 42% of showings are happening outside your typical business office hours. And they couldn't believe it. And it's true. Think about it. When you want to tour is the exact opposite time when someone is working, 100%. Right? Your Sundays, your Saturdays. And so that's the whole problem we're trying to solve for. And then, so that was sort of the first problem set. And then as we started looking at the friction points, we said, well, how do you make the access part easy? And so that's when we started expanding into smart locks, smart home, and then eventually our newest product, which is our intercom access panel that we just launched a couple months back.
Okay, so this is a brand new product line.
Brand new product line, yeah.
Tell everyone more about this.
So the thing that we've learned is single family and multifamily are very different, right? And so that not just applies to the experience, but also to access control. Access control is quite different. I was actually just talking to a vendor partner about this, and you go into multifamily and there's these high traffic doors that you need access to, amenities or common areas. And so, your traditional deadbolts don't really service that market, especially when you're looking at high rises or mid rises and densely populated, communities. And so we said, gosh, like how do we solve this sort of access control pain point, but also tie it to self-touring? And so that's when we launched our intercom access panel. This is actually our 4th version of the panel. We've actually been working on this for quite a while. We're very lucky to have Clark, who's our technical co-founder and CTO. We have, a factory in China that we work with and a whole subsidiary in China. And they were able to help us develop hardware quite quickly. So, in quite a short time frame, hardware's never really short. It's 100%. Short compared to hardware, but we were able to really develop this intercom access panel hybrid where you have a common area functionality baked in. But what's really cool about it is, right now the market and the typical strategy for operators is, well, you deploy common area and then maybe you deploy an intercom product on a separate access point. But what we have is a kind of a 2-for-1. You have a common area that can get installed on the door, but then via a software upgrade in the back end, you can actually update it so that it has intercom functionality based on a dynamic QR code that uses e-ink. So it's constantly rotating for security. But then if you do the upgrade as an operator, you have intercom functionality and it leverages, the phone that you already have on your camera. So it's a pretty cool hybrid play. We're really excited about it. We've already sold out our first batch, which we're really excited about. And now we're just promoting it at PropTech, trying to sell before budget season ends, because we know budget season is ending. So,
and this helps consolidate a vendor, right?
Correct. Yeah. So, and again, it comes back to, obviously we can work with third-party access providers too, but it really consolidates that journey, because if you're, let's say, you want to offer prospective residents amenity tours, but you don't want them to get in-unit tours, this allows you to do that. And again, some of the feedback we were hearing from operators is, God, we love your smart home product, we love your self-guided touring product, but either they hadn't deployed a updated common area access technology, or they were reevaluating their vendors currently. And so we thought, gosh, this is just such a natural fit.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that's again the problem we wanted to solve for, and it tied exactly into our mission and our values too. So we're like, yeah, let's do it.
One of the issues, so shifting gears a little bit, one of the issues that a lot of companies face, and I wonder if you face this shifting from single family to multifamily. Go to market in multifamily is hard, right? You've got like 3 stools to this chair. You've got the product, you've got the go to market, and probably you've got the capital side as well.
Yeah.
And your marketing team told me a lot about you heading into this.
Oh no!
They said,
watch out! Here it comes. Here's the gotcha.
The little bit.
Is this where they come out and there you go? It's a punked. Yeah.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah.
They're right
behind the screen. Yeah.
They may have told me that you were starting a podcast.
Yes, so we are. So one of the things that we want to do is, we want to look at the operations element, obviously scaling up and servicing both verticals. We learned a lot, but we also started learning more about the operational elements and some of the vendor partners and just some of the natural organic interactions we were having networking with other people. And anyway, I got a call from our VP of product, and he goes, "We're thinking of doing a podcast." I said, "Great, it's coming out of your budget." was the first thing out of my mouth. Yeah. He goes, "No, we want you to be in it." And I go, I'm sorry that you feel that way, because that's unfortunate for you. But they said, no, Rently has such a big presence in the industry, and one of the things that we want to do is we want to get more engaged with not just vendor partners, but also other people in space, and also even expand the scope to even other operations professionals and software that's outside of PropTech.
Yeah.
And so we were sort of doing some research, and we're like, hey, there's an opportunity there to actually put something together that is entertaining, but also educational. So we're really focused on making that. I think the best way our director of marketing, our senior director of marketing, Becca, put it in such a succinct, great way. She said, you want to humanize operations. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what we want to do. It's not being so granular and analytical and thought leader centric, right? Obviously we want to have thought leaders, but we also want to, talk about the human element of people. So, we'll ask questions like, how do you do goal setting methodologies for your company? What's the biggest struggle you've had scaling, right? These are questions I'm going to ask you eventually, right? But then I'll pepper in questions like, what's the last, you an Apple Music person, or you like Spotify?
Yeah.
What's the last song you like? Show me, prove it that it's not Taylor Swift, right? Because I know it is. I heard you blasting it earlier, but so it's going to be a blend of real thought leadership, but also some fun conversations to get people engaged and really, taking off our PropTech, we're so proper, hat, and being a little bit more fun with it. Because at the end of the day, like, being in space for 8 years now, I've learned so much about all of our partners and the human element. Learned about, you co-founding a company with your wife, having a family, doing so many podcasts, and there's just so many stories that I feel like are being lost. We're not really sharing that with the world, and I feel like there's so much to learn outside of even PropTech, sharing this with other industries. And
that's great.
A lot of people can learn from Ben from Revise.
I don't know.
And Andre, maybe. And, Raphael shooting, right? So it's just like, there's so many stories that we want to share, especially with the fact that we impact so many people's lives.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, we touch a segment of the market that's really unique. We touch millions of renters every year. And so it's a great story we want to share. So yeah, we're launching that podcast in 2025. And one of the first people that came to mind was good old Ben from Revise. And I was like, I'm getting you. And he agreed. And so it's on film. He agreed. And I can't wait to have you, because you really are a great thought leader in the industry.
Thank you.
You've been around for quite a while. And we really appreciate being on here and being with you.
I'm very excited to tell the audience what not to do and all the mistakes I made.
Well, me too, right? And I think you asked a question earlier. So you were talking about longevity and multifamily. It's a different beast. And, so this is my 8th OpTech, right? So, which I'm learning is more, as I'm talking to more people, so a lot of people, it's their first or second OpTech. And I remember my first OpTech, we didn't have a booth. I mean, I was literally, you're going to laugh when you hear this, but it's true. Like, me and Merrick saw a business card on the ground and we're like, hey, do we pick it up and treat it as a lead? I mean, we knew nobody in multifamily.
Yep.
And we didn't have a booth. And I remember I finally met up with a vendor, and I said, how do you break into multifamily?
Yep.
And he looked me cold in the eye and he said, be here for 5 more years.
Yep.
And I thought, gosh, what a jerk. That's such mean advice.
But it's so
hand
true.
to God, like, it's so true because, and not because he was trying to be mean, he was just trying to tell me, like, you have to have lasting power in this industry.
Yeah.
And so, it was pretty direct and, in retrospect, seemed pretty cold, but he was actually doing me a favor because he said, hey, you really have to be in this for the long haul. And he's right. And
you really were in sales if you picked up a business card off the floor.
yeah. Yeah. And I mean, seriously. And we're like, do we put this in Salesforce? And we didn't. Eventually, we're like, no, that's not the right thing to do. But that's just to give you a sense. So if you're like watching this podcast and you're new to like trade shows and you're feeling that feeling, you just got to push through it. And you just got to work harder and be really be convinced about your value prop.
Yeah.
And, if you're not hitting a mark, pivot.
Yeah.
But, don't pivot too much. So a lot of lessons learned.
That's such good advice.
Yeah.
Okay, to wrap us up, so you said it was your 6th PropTech?
8th.
8th PropTech.
Yeah, 2016 Dallas. It was freezing.
Was that the Anatole? No.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds right. It was freezing.
Yeah.
And I remember it was cold, weather-wise and metaphorically.
Yeah.
Because it was one of the first multifamily shows. Yeah.
Tell us about your sentiment on PropTech in general, right? Like this is, it's a very niche conference.
It is.
I think this is my 9th. I might have you by a year.
Of course you do. Of course he does, ladies and gents. He
but-
planned this.
Conference circuit has grown.
Yeah.
There are new conferences hitting the scene.
Yeah.
PropTech has always been special.
Yep.
Tell us your sentiment.
PropTech, I always forget how big it is until I get here. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. It's really, it's big, but it's also extremely focused on that technology niche. And so, I mean, again, it's a banner show. Yeah. Like it's one of those must-haves every year. Yeah. It's grown tremendously, but it's also grown in a focused way.
Yeah.
You've seen trade shows where they sort of grow, and they sort of lose sight of what they are. But PropTech still does their opening pitches. They still have great relevant talks. The timing is great because it's right before budget season closes. So it's sort of the last call for vendors, right, to get into the next year of budgeting.
Yeah.
I find that, because it's smaller, it tends to be a little bit more intimate.
Yeah.
Which so it's a nice mix of, because sometimes you go to these big shows and it's quite intimidating, and you sort of lose focus and you're like, oh gosh, and then you download the app and you're like, which one of the 30 million things do I go to? And with PropTech, because they've done such a good job of expanding the attendance but also keeping the focus, I don't feel like I have that sort of lost in the sauce kind of feeling that I can have with other trade shows. So they've done a good job. The timing's good. It's DC.
Yeah.
So, on the eve of an election, like great location too. So, no, it's always been a great show for us.
I wasn't going to go into politics, but no, I'm not.
I mean, honestly, it's exciting. I mean, I'm candidly, like, as long as the interest rates keep going, I'm fine. Like we've seen, I think what was perceived as a little bit of mixed messaging at the first half of the year. Yeah. You can feel that in the industry too. Yeah. It's our rates going down.
Yeah.
And then that sentiment reflects on our customers, and that hits the vendors. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, if you're watching and you have some muscle, cut those interest rates, keep going. Obviously balance it. It's hard though, right? It's easy to say that, but you got to balance it with inflation. Yeah, so anyway, I'm excited for 2025. Regardless of who gets elected, we're going to keep chugging, growing, and
I love it.
Rently's been through quite 4 presidents, so, and some companies have been here, so yeah, it's exciting times ahead.
Super cool, man. Andre, thank you for joining us.
Ben, thank you. It's always a pleasure, seeing you, and really proud of what you guys have done and proud of your recent successes. So
thank you, man. I will return the favor. I'll be on your show.
Oh man, hey, this is all love, dude. I'm really happy for you, and yeah, thanks again for having Rently and myself on the podcast.
For sure.